When that annoying a-hole in the theater has their cell phone on, you hire the part-time henchman. I am Jeremy.
I'm Joanna.
I'm Casey. I'm going to go stomp that guy.
And Jesse.
He's going to go stomp Jesse. Got it. It has been an interesting few days. How's everybody doing so far?
Pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
Very wet. We're going 6 days of rain down here in San Antonio.
Wow,
Sometimes.
I'm glad
Share
you
some
finished
of
that
that.
sentence because that was just that was an interesting way to start a conversation. How are you? Very wet. Okay, I'm going to scoot over here and
You have to go inside when it rains, Kate.
Yes. Somebody needs to tell me that.
Mm.
please tell me when it rains you don't just throw your head back and breathe heavy.
Mental image.
No, I spent a lot of time out in the rain for reasons I'm not going to get into on a public podcast.
Moving right along. Hey, it's my birthday, by the way.
Yay,
Happy
birthday!
Happy birthday.
Yay. Thank you.
You know, get to get through all this moisture talk, I guess. That's
Uh,
one
Yeah.
Congratulations on the anniversary of your terrestrial ascension.
Yes.
You make it sound like she needs to drink like Kool-Aid spiked with Drano or something.
I'll
Do
stick
it.
to water.
Do it, Joe.
thanks.
Do it.
How about Kool-Aid and rum? That's a good mix.
Nah, that's a strange mix. But who am I to judge?
So judgy.
Jesse, what about you?
I am quite exhausted right now.
Oh,
Still working
7 days
days
a
on
week.
end because of a missing guy, but I think we finally got things covered there.
Oh, you finally found a three-legged dog to take over for him or something?
Something like that.
Now I'm afraid to even ask. Okay. I actually had a busier weekend than I wanted to. I went to a screening of the first 2 episodes of the next season of Sword Art Online.
Cool.
And as interested as I was in the material, I remembered why I hated going to premieres. Because they're full of people that will cheer at the littlest stupid things.
Oh, lame.
You know, I'm sitting
Yeah.
there just trying to watch the episodes and drink in everything in the scenario. And when certain characters show up, you know, people clap or scream ridiculous things at it. And, you know, it's not an episode of Mystery Science Theater. Calm the F down. Let's just watch the show.
But it's an anime, so you have to suffer through the fandoms, too.
Yeah, of course. But the funny thing was, while I was sitting in the theater for that, I got a notification of something I signed up for weeks ago and completely forgot about.
I hope it's
Oh, yeah?
exciting.
It wasn't exciting necessarily, but it was kind of funny during. There was a screening of the anime Your Name, or Kimi no Nawa, in a park in Southern California. It was a free event, and I signed up for a couple tickets, got a friend to meet me there. You know, I got there 2 hours early just so I could lay on a blanket and read the second volume of Rat Queens in some peace and quiet.
Nice.
And, my friend showed up. She was glad for the invitation. The movie started. About 20 minutes in, I heard a very familiar hissing sound from outside the wall of this mini tea house in the park. And when I turned around, I realized that the sprinklers just outside the wall were on. So people who were sitting along that fence had to move forward.
Oh, no.
You know, and I remember my friend just leaned over and said, "Do you think they remember that for all the sprinklers?" And I looked back at her and said, "Well, they haven't come on in here and they got time to figure it out. I'm sure they'll have it done." So 25 minutes
No.
25 minutes later, I hear another hissing sound ahead and to the left of me. And when I turn my eyes in that direction, there's a small stream of water coming up from underneath a lawn chair in front of me. And I say small because it's only about, 1.5 feet tall and it's arcing high and coming almost straight back down. And I remember poking my friend and just saying, "I don't think they fixed it." And that's when the guy in the lawn chair realized something was going on underneath him, leaned forward, and a small stream of water passed in front of my nose and hit my bag that had my picnic supplies. So, she and my friend and I leapt up. I yanked the blanket out from underneath this stream that's like sporadically coming, and the guy won't sit in the chair and block for the rest of us. He just has to shift around all the time. And by the time they finally got all the sprinklers shut off, because it was the first of like 6 that went on in the area, I only had to move about 2 feet, but my bag was soaked. My backpack was a little damp. My shoes were soaked. Thank God I brought flip-flops, but they were also soaked. You know, got through the rest of the night, but it was just that 5 minutes of hilarity in the middle of the film. And what happened after we sit down, my friend was only a little bit aggravated because she hadn't seen the movie, and she said, "You missed the twist." And I'm like, I missed a what? "The plot twist. It happened during all that." "Oh, well, now I don't know if I should watch the rest of the movie. Should we go home?" "Are you out of your mind? Probably. You know.
Yeah.
You know, but of course I'm also the guy that during like minor scenes when characters are supposed to be doing something romantic, I just kind of cut it up with a self-monologue of little glib remarks, and I think she punched me in the ribs once for it.
Oh, are you that douchebag? Stop doing that.
Oh, it's just I'm having fun, you know, just watching the film in my own way. It's like when the little sister's freaked out by the older one's weird activities and what she's doing to her body, I just kind of said to myself, and she became a producer of a new TV show with Chris Hansen.
Oh,
Wow.
God, bad joke level. You need to stop. You are not a comedian, Jeremy.
Hey, that was for me, not for anybody else.
Ugh,
See,
the
I went to go
worst.
see The Predators today.
Oh?
The Predator movie, and there was four of us, including me, in the theater. It was like a private screening. It was
Nice.
so awesome.
That's how I
Except
saw.
the one guy on our row pulled out his phone, and it's on the brightest possible setting. And I see it out of the corner of my eye, and I'm like, you know, the hissing of the sunlight of the vampires. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I like kind of give him like the look, and he does it 2 more times, and it's at a movie theater where
look.
I have a very powerful the look. So it's in one of those where they serve food, so you can, you know, signal to the server if someone's bothering you, and they kick them out, like no questions asked. I was like, I'm not going to be that jerk, but if he does it again, I'm going to be that jerk. So he didn't. I think the look helped.
Yeah.
Look.
That's only happened in 2 movie screenings I've ever been to, and the first time I was a guy who looked across like 3 seats in a relatively packed movie house at a guy staring at his phone. I just said, you or that phone is going in the aisle, and you get to pick. That's a tale for another time. The subject of this week is Xena Warrior Princess Volume 4 by Dynamite Comics. We'll get to that after the news of the week, and we're going to start off with Marvel comic news. We'll talk about the characters and storylines that are owned by the House of Mouse and what's coming up for them. It's recently been solicited that another wedding is going to happen in Marvel Comics. If you've been reading the comics, you know which one I'm talking about. But
Yep.
I don't know what you're talking about.
they officially say that it's going to happen in Fantastic Four number 5. Ben Grimm, otherwise known as the Thing, is going to get married to his longtime on-again, off-again paramour, Alicia Richards.
Aw, how cute.
I think they're going with the legacy numbering on the wedding, which is 650.
Oh, it's going to be actually number 5. It will be the 650th issue, but the official numbering is number 5 of this one. I don't remember which volume of the Fantastic Four comics this is. Alicia Masters was introduced way back in the original volume of Fantastic Four number 8, when her adoptive father, the Puppet Master, who also is the one who accidentally blinded her, refused to act as a pawn in one of his schemes.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic Four number 5 is going to be done by Dan Slott. The artist is going to be Esad Ribic. They're also going to get a little help from an upcoming Marvel artist named Aaron Cooter. You know, if they get married, I think that will actually be the story. These two have been in so many relationships together. The fact that they are together is not new to me. And
Right.
I don't even like these comics, and I'm very aware of their relationship. It's one of those types of deals.
Mm-hmm.
Although the solicitation and cover image was interesting to me only because I was not aware Ben Grimm is Jewish.
What?
Oh, really? You didn't?
No, I wasn't aware. On the cover, he's in a tuxedo, and he's wearing an Orthodox shawl and a yarmulke on it.
Yeah, he's actually one of the more visible Jewish superheroes.
I didn't know that either, honestly, but I don't follow Fantastic
Honestly, I didn't know that either, but I am not shocked by it.
Yeah, I mean, the most visible Jewish characters I knew of were Magneto, Kitty Pryde, and Optimus Prime, but that's something else.
I feel very superior at this moment. I feel validated in my
Oh
superiority.
no!
No. So you finished the Vision finally?
No.
Then shut up!
Well played.
Marvel is also teasing the end of one of their long-standing characters, but you know how the end is when it comes to single-hero comics. It's more or less a tease and not usually a payoff. But
Yeah.
this particular end is for the Daredevil.
Really?
Yeah, Marvel
Yeah.
Marvel tweeted an image of Matt Murdock in his Daredevil costume, but holding his mask in one hand and offering his other to a blonde woman that fans think might be the long-lost Karen Page.
I've been hearing some buzz about that.
Yeah, the art from
She's been dead for a while.
She has. She died, if I remember correctly, of a heroin overdose and has not been seen since. She's
No, actually, she was killed in the Kevin Smith run while she was trying to protect Matt by a thrown object from Bullseye.
Oh, okay. Well, the art in this image is by Bill Sienkiewicz, who is famous for his horror run during the New Mutant era. It also teases further information on September 21st, so we may actually learn something towards the end of this week.
Okay.
There's also a new series coming from Marvel of a character that they've tried a couple times before. The Winter Soldier is getting a new series.
Okay.
So I guess they're relieving him from his place on the moon. Is that where he was at last time?
He hasn't been the Man on the Wall for quite a while, and I can't.
Okay.
I think he's been off that ever since Captain America was de-aged. When he was corrupted into a Hydra Steve. But it's going to be a mini-series. First issue is supposed to come out December 5th. I'm trying to find out... Oh, here we go. The writer is Kyle Higgins, who recently did the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers series for Boom Studios. And the artist is Rod Reese, who's recently done Doctor Strange Damnation. According to Higgins, quote, "As someone with quite a bit of experience with grown-up sidekicks, I know firsthand how important it is to define the character outside of their relationship with their mentor. Since being freed from Soviet brainwashing, Bucky has done a massive amount of work to atone for his sins, becoming Captain America, spending time in the Gulag, dying to save the world. In many ways, he's found redemption. So what's next for him? He's going to help other people do the same," unquote.
Oh, so it's like he's seeking out people for redemption?
That's what Well, that's what the statement by the writer says anyway, and I don't know how many issues this miniseries is going to be.
It's a miniseries.
Yeah.
I didn't catch that part.
I mean, if anybody could show the road to redemption, Bucky Barnes is one of the people who knows that road very well at this point.
Yeah.
The only thing
I do love redemption stories.
Well, the only thing that I can think of in the comics, the only thing he hasn't achieved is public acceptance. He's been Captain America. The superhero community knows who he is and fairly well trusts him, but the public at large still thinks of him as an assassin, as far as I know.
Yeah.
So maybe this will help him get that last step, and he can actually show his face in public again. Not all is roses for Marvel's characters. It was also announced this week that the follow-up to Tom King's Vision, being done by Chelsea Kane, the writer of the Mockingbird series, has been canceled.
Oh.
Yeah, with no reason for it either.
Yeah, Marvel has offered no reason. They've simply canceled their solicitations. They were about to take orders for the series. They've canceled all potential orders. Chelsea Kane, the writer of the series, she tweeted out a couple days ago, quote, "I'm incredibly proud of the 4 issues we've turned in so far. It's been 2 years of work and reflects tremendous effort by an incredibly talented team. It kills me that we won't get to share them. Forgive me, Viv," unquote.
There's got to be something to that.
Marvel's
got to say something.
I'd like to say they would, but I can't say they should at this point. Kane went on to tell Entertainment Weekly, quote, "We've been working solidly for the last 6 months. The first 3 issues are inked. The first issue is colored. They all have amazing cover art. The series was announced in July and officially solicited about a month ago. They put it in previews. They advertised it. Why go through all that just to pull the plug," unquote.
Maybe it's a power play against somebody that's involved in the creative side.
Well, actually, Kane also dispelled that. She went on to say, quote, "The most shocking part is that the people who work in it, who support these institutional norms, they're the best people you'd ever want to meet. They love comics. And the freelancers, they're held hostage by the work. When Marvel asks you to let something go, to toe the line, the implication is clear. DC and Marvel dominate this industry. Freelancers don't want to make enemies of institutions because freelancers depend on that next job that comes along," unquote. She also called her editor, Will Moss, one of the most lovely, personable, and talented people in comics. So it sounds like all the people who worked on this from corporate all the way down liked it, but for some reason Marvel as a company pulled the plug on the project. I can't say for sure what it is. It could be that whoever was editing it and reading it through was concerned about how it would follow up Tom King's work. It could be something else that I'm just completely unaware of. Maybe they felt it wasn't the right time for it.
It's still
It's
upsetting.
disappointing. It is seriously disappointing. I was looking forward to a follow-up. One character who is getting a follow-up is Venom. The movie for the character's coming out October 5th, starring Tom Hardy. And to coincide with it, Marvel's releasing a one-shot, custom edition tie-in comic to help audiences to this new version of Eddie Brock.
That's something they've done before. The whole prequel comic.
Yeah, according to IGN, the comic is going to be released digitally September 14th at 11 a.m., so it should be out already. People who want a physical copy of the book can only do so if they purchase their tickets for the film's opening weekend from AMC theaters.
Interesting.
Well, that's technically a limited edition.
Mm-hmm.
And Marvel's also announced that Miles Morales, the Ultimate Spider-Man, is getting a new series.
Yeah, I thought that was a good idea by them. I mean, they put him in the Spider-Man, this flat-out Spider-Man title. That doesn't really tell people that this is the Miles book. Yeah. So for them to kind of go the Peter Parker Spider-Man route with him is a good idea.
Yeah, to explain what he means is the new series is going to be titled Miles Morales Spider-Man. It's going to be by writer Saladin Ahmed. The artist is Javier Herron. It is the first Miles Morales solo comic that hasn't been written by the character creator, Brian Michael Bendis. And, man, I get frustrated when multiple characters have the same superhero name. I would really like this character to have his own identity.
Well, a lot of people resisted that kind of thing, but then, DC kind of set the precedent that it could happen and it could work,
I didn't say I liked it any better in DC, but,
Yeah, I know that Marvel's fought against that internally. I remember Villain taking on the name of Power Man during the time that Luke Cage was doing it, and they actually had a fight just over the name.
Mm-hmm. According to the new writer, he's told IGN, quote, "For my money, Spider-Man is, at his core, a teenage hero. In this book, Miles will be that Spider-Man, battling threats against the community and the city rather than the universe, and trying to do so while dealing with grades and bullies, family, and botched dates. This is classic Spider-Man, but very much dealing with modern concerns and realities," unquote.
Cool. Seems like it's getting back to the essence of Spider-Man.
Yeah, this is more or less the stripped-down Spider-Man experience, just through Miles' eyes, not Peter's.
That's fine by me.
Yeah, I'm okay with there being more than one Spider-Man, because it adds a validity to the character that I think that they wouldn't have if they gave Miles a secondary name.
I don't know if I...
A secondary name, though?
Hmm?
Didn't they already give him a secondary name?
No.
No, the only Spider-Man character that's been given a secondary name so far is Spider-Gwen.
Yeah, they named her Ghost Spider recently.
Yeah, from her universe, she was originally Spider-Woman. Now she's the Ghost Spider. And I still haven't heard as to how that character is going to be based. Is she still reality hopping, or is she going to get stuck in the 616 somehow?
Well, from what I've read, and I've been doing a little bit of reading on that, is that she still will have access to her home dimension because she still has that dimensional hopper on her wrist.
All right. Well, the X-Men are going to be in mourning pretty soon. As we know, as a result of extermination, they've had a fatality, a couple technically. But they're going to go through with a one-shot called X-Men the Exterminated. This will see the X-Men coming together to mourn the loss of Cable, who died in the first issue of X-Men Extermination. Looks like this one's going to stick for a while. The book itself is going to follow Hope Summers, Cable's adopted daughter, as she grieves the death. And her journey may descend into darkness, but it looks like it's going to be a family affair as Jean Grey tries to help her get past all of this.
Interesting.
I think Hope is a useless character. I really do. I just don't see her point.
She's not useless. I think the problem is that she was a character who was created for a specific event, and the writers haven't had a plan past that event.
Yeah, she was a plot device originally.
Yeah. And she was also the one who people thought for years was Jean Grey resurrected, because when she was born as a baby, there was a fiery explosion in the hospital.
Yeah.
I
mean, it could be anything at that point.
According to one of the writers, Zach Thompson, quote, this issue is our chance to say a proper farewell to Cable, to honor his legacy and to really see the immense impact that the time-traveling mutant had on those closest to him. Most importantly, it's about how the Summers family copes with grief and the difficulty of forging ahead. The issue is packed with fan-favorite X-Men from all different eras, and we're super excited to be bringing them together, despite the somber occasion, unquote.
Okay.
Wouldn't the X-Men be really used to this kind of stuff?
Death possibly, but Cable's come back from death so many times, it almost seemed impossible for him to die. And now to find out that he's died at his own hands, technically.
Yeah.
You know, this one is a little bit different. Also, it is somewhat different because you have a character who's a direct descendant of the deceased who actually has to figure out a way to carry on. Last time something like that happened was probably in X Factor when Banshee died and Siren was in denial.
Mm-hmm.
Was this during the time that she was in X Factor?
Yeah, she just kind of sat in a chair, and when somebody told her Banshee died, she just kind of shrugged her shoulders and said, whatever, he'll be back anyway.
He was.
Not before she died.
Well, she's not really dead. She is a goddess, or like a Banshee goddess now.
She's the Morrigan.
Yeah, yeah. She's not dead.
Well, last up in Marvel comic news, it turns out that the two X-Men stories are related. It was announced this past week that there will be a new X-Force series where most of the original members, actually all the surviving original members, are back together with 2 additions. It doesn't say who's the lead in this book, but on the cover is Cannonball, Warpath, Boom Boom, a.k.a. Meltdown, a.k.a. Boomer, Domino, Shatterstar, a Deathlock that's been palling around with X-Force for quite a while, and Young Cable.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, from what I've read, the initial impetus of this group is that they get together following Cable's death to figure out what to do. Then they found out who killed him, and they wanted to hunt him down. Some people to ask him why, others just to get some comeuppance for their former boss.
Which is strange, because in the solicitation, it's very clear he's in the center of it, almost like their leader.
Well, I mean, in the cover, he doesn't look like a leader. He looks like he's off to the side to me. It almost looks like Deathlock's in the middle.
You're
I'm
right.
Sure, that's
You're
not
right.
possible.
I'm getting him confused with Deathlock in my head.
Well, it's just a case of if you look at the cover, and I can link it if you care, but it's a matter of perspective. It looks like the center of the group is Deathlock, and we're, based on our perspective, we're looking at it as Cable apparently in the center of where we're looking, I would say.
Yeah.
So I will send that to you guys so you can look. I mean, it's a good cover. It looks like it has the possibilities, and most of these characters haven't been in steady use for quite a while. Although I noticed that Shatterstar seems to have gone back to his X Factor look.
Yeah, I like the X Factor look. I thought it looked cool.
It's not bad. And now we have DC comic news. We're going to talk about the characters and properties that are owned by AT&T and their storylines coming now and in the near future. Batman Day was this past, I want to say a couple weekends ago. No, it was last weekend, September 15th.
Yep.
And during that was actually a special shout-out from the Joker to Batman.
Oh.
I
don't remember that part.
Well, it was a tweet on September 15th from Mark Hamill. He said, quote, "For years, I dreamed of finding a part as far from Luke as possible. Thanks to everyone at Batman the Animated Series for making my dreams come true. On this special day, a shout-out to my one and only Dark Knight at Real Kevin Conroy. Hashtag Happy Batman Day 2018, unquote.
Nice.
Mark Hamill is probably the person who's most excited that Mark Hamill played the Joker.
Oh yeah.
You know, and I feel
He
sorry
did
for
such a good job.
Yeah, I've seen
He
a lot
really
of his
did.
subsequent performances, and he's tried so many things just to get people to forget that he happened to be in Star Wars.
I think he's pulled it off. I mean, he's been in Batman, and he also did a lot of voice work in Metalocalypse.
I barely watched that show.
I didn't
You
know that. I'm not
should.
familiar.
That show is awesome.
I watched 5 episodes. I've had my fill.
Philistine.
I'm more of a Venture Brothers person.
They're not mutually exclusive.
To me, they certainly are.
Nerd.
The DC Universe finally opened, and that is the new streaming service that WB has opened up based on their DC properties. There was a short list of things that were available as the app opened, and you know, if you're a DC fan, I'm sure this is enough. If you're a Batman fan, you were probably thrilled when it opened.
Oh, that's right. The HD Batman series was made available.
Yeah, available for reading were The Dark Knight Returns Detective Comics number 27, Batman Year 1, Batman number 497, Batman Year 2, Batman Shaman, Mad Love, Year 100, Batman number 1, A Death in the Family, Black and White 1 through 4, Strange Apparitions, Eternal, and Gothic. In addition to all that, you were able to watch pretty much every Batman movie ever made, both live action and animated. And a couple special documentaries about Batman tech and The Dark Knight Unmasked, The Psychology of Batman. Jesus, was there an S to be found anywhere in this thing?
More
Wasn't
importantly, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say Ninja Batman. I think also hit Netflix.
I do not know. I'm kind of terrified to watch that one.
I've seen the detail in the trailer. It looks really impressive, but yeah, I've been a little gun shy about watching it myself.
I've tried a lot of the DC animated stuff, and it seems like ever since they shut down Young Justice and tried to reappropriate the animators from that show, they've kind of lost direction. When you have a really good team working together and making a quality animated show, then you break up that team to make them work several properties, nothing seems to work right. And to me, that's what happened during this particular era.
Well, thankfully, they learned the error of their ways and rebooted Young Justice.
Yeah, well, the new season is coming to this DC streaming service that I don't plan to have. And I still don't know if they've reacquired or if they reunited the team for that, if they hired another one. I know they put the writers back on it, but I don't know if they put the animators back on it.
Well, have you seen the footage? It sure looks like it.
Not so far. Like I said, I won't have the streaming service, so I can't say I've gone out of my way to do anything about that.
I've posted a couple of it on my Facebook. I'll share them with you later.
Okay. Benjamin Percy has announced his departure from the Nightwing series. He's been working on it for a while. He made the announcement on Twitter in a string of 4 separate tweets. He did not go into specifics on why he's stepping away from the series, but he did state that he didn't get to complete the story he planned for Dick Grayson.
Yeah, I think I heard something about that, and that is unfortunate. I wonder why. Is he going on to do like a bigger project?
He didn't mention what he's doing afterwards. I think it's kind of sad, though, that his final issue is issue 50, where Dick Grayson is supposed to get that life-altering injury he's getting. So yeah. Percy gets to write the event that changes Nightwing's life, but doesn't get to write what happens after that moment.
Yeah. That's unfortunate.
That's got to be the story he's talking about.
Yeah. That's what I was... that was my impression from what I read.
DC has announced that writer Scott Lobdell will be taking over for Benjamin Percy as of Nightwing number 51. And they finally revealed the exact nature as to what's happening to Dick Grayson to give him that bizarre Nightwing-style scar in the side of his head. It turns out he's going to get shot.
Oh,
wow.
That wound is a bullet wound, but he's going to get shot in the head as of Batman number 55, causing him to suffer an amnesiac episode. He forgets ever being Robin.
Okay.
Which means if he's never Robin, then obviously this man that he's become doesn't remember being Nightwing. He remembers who he is for the most part, but he doesn't have any memory of being a vigilante. And then over the course of Nightwing 51 to 53, of course, slowly the memories start to creep in. Then he has a choice to make. Does he go back to being a vigilante to help people, or does he rescue the happiness he's found as an average citizen?
Dilemmas.
Wow.
That's an interesting tag. Just by the solicitations, you have my attention.
Right, for sure.
But now it's going to be in another writer's hand, which, God, I hate when that happens.
Yeah, but unfortunately...
When you do something that you obviously have a story, it's a paradigm shift that you're doing, and all of a sudden you got to hand it over to somebody else for them to interpret what's going to happen.
Yeah. I'm just kind of glad I'm not writing it, because I think I'd have to make part of the story him going through old newspaper clippings, looking at like old pictures of Robin, thinking, is that me? Is that me in green Speedos?
Like, what was I thinking with those tights?
And those
that
shoes.
Would be comedy gold.
Yes.
Those frackin' elf shoes. I read Flash number 54 as part of my reviews, and it also made it into news this week because a classic DC character has returned in that issue.
Which one?
Well, the current Trickster, his name is Axel something. I think it's Axel Williams? Or Walker. Axel Walker. He somehow has been tapping into the new Strength Force that's debuted in the Flash comics. And Barry Allen has figured out that not only does the Strength Force grant you unbelievable physical power and durability, but it also grants you some sort of control over gravity. Which, again, feels like too damn much.
Yeah.
But everybody thinks Axel Walker died trying to save a few people who were going to be crushed as his strength was running out. But nobody found a body. Turns out the body was retrieved by another man who offers him a helping hand after this kid lost his power and an arm, some kind of, prosthesis he was using that was made out of rock. And the man that held out his hand is James Jesse, the original Trickster.
Uh-oh.
That's a lot of attention paid to Trickster.
Yeah, this character has not been seen in quite a while. He's been dead since he was shot by Deadshot in 2008's Countdown to Final Crisis. It was part of an on-the-run adventure that he and the Pied Piper were having while they were trying to... I don't remember. I think they had part of the anti-life equation.
Dead body.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think the Pied Piper had like part of the anti-life equation in his head.
Yeah, he was dragging his dead body, and then for a while he was hallucinating that the dead body was talking to him.
Yeah.
And that was kind of his path to redemption, if I'm not mistaken.
It was. The Pied Piper became not a hero necessarily, but more or less like a hero consultant. He only showed up when things were dire and they needed information on the rogues.
Yeah.
The character of James Jesse was seen briefly during the Black Lantern event in 2010. However, if you read the comics, you know that those weren't actual resurrections. They were constructs made out of characters, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
The only other thing that was revealed in Flash number 54 is that Wally West, when he returned, he didn't just grant his memories, or he didn't just bring back the memories of himself. Iris Allen remembers being married to Barry Allen in another life.
Yeah, I thought they were going to address that.
Yeah, or I guess technically she's Iris West here. She's bothered by it. Barry knows she's being bothered by something, but she just won't talk about it for now.
Because she never does, anyway.
It does seem to be kind of the falling of the long-term love affairs of the Justice League, is that they tend to keep very important secrets to themselves.
It's like, no, you talk, because that makes worse things later, but she's particularly bad.
Well, I mean, I think they're all kind of technically bad. It seems like most of them have this secret that the moment they're ready to talk about it is when they suddenly end up in a refrigerator.
Yeah. Or with amnesia.
God.
Yeah. Well, DC is also resurrecting one of their older comic book heroes and teams. They're going to do a 12-issue Freedom Fighter series by Robert Venditti and artist Eddie Barrows. Don't. The series will be set in Earth X, the alternative universe in DC, where Germany won World War II and America lives under the thumb of a Nazi regime. The statement by the writer, don't. Quote, we get to see how 2018 America looks if the Germans won World War II, but also what the status of superheroes is in that kind of environment as well. It's a lot of fun because you just kind of build everything from scratch and really get to throw a lot of concepts out there. And it's something that takes place in the wider DC multiverse for not being set on this Earth, meaning it isn't as constrained as other stories might be, unquote. I'm sure that was mistyped somewhere. Okay, now that that's done, I'm sure you're wondering why I keep saying don't. It's because Casey dislikes Robert Venditti to a near pathological degree. Now I will cede the floor, and I will let you get your stuff out there. Go ahead.
I want to envision a world of 2018 where Venditti is not allowed to write comics.
Okay.
And I want a pony.
The scary thing is, I think only one
easier than the other.
Yeah, I was about to say only one of those is really possible, unfortunately.
And like maybe 8 more cats?
Wow.
I have 8 cats.
And she feeds them to the horse. Okay, the Freedom Fighters team will be comprised of the Human Bomb, Black Condor, Doll Woman, and the Phantom Lady, all of which are classic DC characters at this point.
Oh, wow.
Apparently... I'm sorry?
No, I actually used to read those. The old Freedom Force led by Uncle Sam.
Yeah, according to further statements, apparently these will all be newer incarnations of the characters. They won't be the classic ones. The concepts will be modernized to a certain degree. I can't say I blame them. You know, Black Condor by himself is something that is, when you compare it to modern comic characters, it's kind of amazing he hasn't been shot out of the sky 5 times over.
Oh, yeah, he did have a ridiculous,
he was just a guy with underarm
Cosmic
wings.
Boy.
Yeah, he was just a guy with underarm wings. I mean, you know, if you're fast and agile, that's fantastic. But compared to modern designs, that's kind of lacking.
Mm-hmm.
God, I think the most hideous mainstream costume I'd ever seen was mid-'70s Legion of the Superheroes Cosmic Boy. He basically wore, was it not a halter top, a bustier, practically.
Something like that, yeah. He definitely had a bare midriff thing going, and he was wearing like a sports top.
In a crop top?
Yeah.
No, he actually had these black things that wrapped around his midsection, and the top part of his chest was bare, and his belly was bare. It was really hideous, but apparently completely acceptable in the 70s.
Yeah, male tight lacing, wonderful. They're also going to be looking for Uncle Sam. At the center of the Freedom Fighters is the patriotic figure of Uncle Sam, the spirit of America. with this new 12-issue miniseries, the Freedom Fighters are looking for him in this world full of Nazis. There was one character design that was released, one new one, I should say, in regards to a villainous soldier type they're going to be running into called the Plastic Men, with 2 S's. In this universe, they have discovered Plastic Man. They stole a bit of his DNA and they started to apply it to Nazi soldiers.
Yeah.
As you can see, they tried to soften the imagery a little bit by changing out the swastika for a pair of crossed S's.
Yeah.
It's not a bad idea, and considering what Plastic Man's been through recently, that could be a hell of an upgrade for the villains in this book.
Mm-hmm.
I believe there's... No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was about to move on to the next story.
No, it reminds me of the symbol that Charlie Chaplin used in The Great Dictator.
Oh, I've never actually seen that. Chaplin, did he play Hitler in those, or was he something else?
He did. But he played a Hitler that was in over his head, and I guess everything just kind of developed around him. And he also gave what is probably still, to this day, one of the most moving anti-fascist speeches ever done. I highly recommend it. If you just put Chaplin's speech, Great Dictator.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
All right. Got a question. Who would you say is the Justice Leaguer that gets the least love in DC?
Currently, Cyborg.
Interesting.
There might be a long list there.
You mean like core members or just her?
Pretty much
Probably
core.
Martian Manhunter.
Pretty much core members was what I was leaning for. And
About JLA.
I can't get too far down that rabbit hole because I feel like we're going to play a game of Guess Who.
Okay, well,
Very true.
I don't feel like Stargirl properly got fleshed out, but that's my opinion.
The reason why I ask is because it was announced this week that the Martian Manhunter is getting a 12-issue miniseries. The writer is Steve Orlando, the artist is Riley Rossmo, and it looks like they're going to try and make the Martian Manhunter more relatable than he's been in a while. Orlando told The Hollywood Reporter, quote, "He's always been my favorite character since I was younger. So to be able to fire our best shot across the bow of doing an evergreen story with him, it's super exciting." And I did not come up with the evergreen pun. Every day I'm writing, I just can't believe it. There's no character I want to work on more. In the past, John has been too perfect. One of the reasons people have not connected to him is that he was a perfect, upright cop on Mars. And yes, his family died, but it was no fault of his own. And then he came to Earth and he was perfect. One of our favorite characters, that's not them, you know? Spider-Man let the burglar go. Bruce Wayne was too afraid to save his family. This book gives John that moment, and that's the keystone as to why this book will be, is the Martian Manhunter story, because we finally know the why. Why he strives to be so good on Earth. Why he has this journey, because he's never really had one before. All of our favorite characters overcome their faults, and we hope he's going to do it here. But he has to have them first, unquote.
That's
Interesting.
valid.
Yeah.
It really is. I think that's why Tom King's Vision book worked so well, because before the character, he's been flawed, but that's usually a programming fault or a glitch or some kind of virus. You know, Tom King's miniseries really brought Vision into the fore and had him and his family make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And I do agree. The Martian Manhunter, every time he's appeared, he hasn't been the driest character in DC, but you never get the feeling that there's anything wrong with him.
True.
So,
Yeah, I think the last time that he ever really had anything wrong with him was during his amnesia days when he was all white.
Yeah, I would say that's true, but even then it was just amnesia. It's not like it's really the character. From what I've gathered from a few other articles, it sounds like he will have an issue in the storyline that takes him back to his origins on Mars, and as a cop, he was corrupted somehow. You know, not anything as radical as like Hail Hydra or anything, but he made a moral mistake, and he has to pay for the consequences.
I can't believe I actually just talked about Vision and not Martian Manhunter. Whoops. You stuck Vision in my head, and I'm like, okay, we're talking Vision.
Oh.
Ah, Jesus.
Sorry.
Okay. No, keep going.
Okay. Well, last up in DC comic news, apparently the Walmart exclusive line has gone well. The Giant Editions, the 100-page books that they've put exclusively in Walmart. So they're expanding it. DC co-publisher Dan Didio revealed that they're doing a 100-page The Flash Giant, and they're also planning a Swamp Thing horror special for Halloween. These will hit stores on October 4th, and the holiday-themed one-shot will be in stores on November 11th.
Okay.
I like the fact that those are taking off. I mean, that's actually how I got introduced to comics, was a good old spinner rack in a grocery store.
Yeah, I just think it's important to reiterate that these are not necessarily new canon stories. They're reprints of existing stories with small side stories added into them.
Right.
But it's the entryway drug that we need to get kids on it. Get them while they're young.
It's not meth.
It's worse. It's comics.
Yeah, it's
Where
about
did you get this? I learned it from watching you.
Well, now that covers are up to about $3 to $4.99 per, I guess it's about as expensive as meth.
Oh,
And they
God.
come out weekly,
Yeah. Need that new fix. Seeing your guy every Wednesday.
basically.
Next up, we have general comic and convention news. We talk about comic books that are not Marvel or DC related, as well as conventions happening all around the world. It's another week where I don't have any convention news. I only have 2 stories regarding independent comic books. First up is that Top Cow is relaunching The Darkness.
The Darkness.
Dude, I mean, The Darkness was pretty much the epitome of late 90s, early 2000s anti-hero storytelling.
Yeah, that's true.
The character was created as the antithesis of Top Cow's other major single superhero, the Witchblade.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that one.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
No,
then
I never really got into those.
Yeah, it became so popular it eventually launched its own series that persisted until the character was eventually killed in Top Cow comics.
Yeah.
Top Cow COO and president Matt Hawkins assured fans that the original Darkness, Jackie Estacado, will be back, but maybe not with the role you're expecting.
I'm assuming he's not a hitman anymore.
I don't know. For all I know, that means he's not the Darkness. It's one of his descendants, that is, and he returns from hell to reclaim the power. The artist on the series has been confirmed as Tom Greinberg. I can't find any information as to who the writer on the series will be. The only other information I have is that the new Darkness series will hit stands sometime in 2019, which I know is a big 12-month window at this point. But that's all the information I have. The other comic story is that a deceased man is going to get his final graphic novel published. A deceased man, yeah, a dead man. And I don't say that lightly. Dark Horse Comics has announced that they're going to put out a graphic novel called Hungry Ghosts. It's a collection of Japanese horror stories that combines traditional Edo period art and style with the passion of the writer for the culinary arts. The writer of this graphic novel is former celebrity chef Anthony Bourdain.
Oh.
I didn't know he did writing.
This is a surprise to me, too.
Yeah.
Wow. His suicide really screwed me over. I mean, like in my head.
It touched a surprising amount of people. I think there was a lot of people who weren't even necessarily a fan of his show who were very aware of who he was.
Yeah.
This graphic novel is going to have artwork by Sebastian Cabral, Vanessa Del Rey, Francesco Francavilla, Irene Coe, Leonardo Manco, Alberto Ponticelli, Paul Pope, Mateus Santiloco, Jose Villarrubia did the colors. Jeez, that's a lot of people. And that's a lot of names that's very hard for me to pronounce. Hey, I mean, if there's a market for I'm sure there's a market for the story now. I mean, you know how it is. When an artist dies, all of a sudden, just about anything they produce is hunted after by fans.
Yeah, truth.
So, power to him. If he's got the story to tell, I just hope it's a good story. The subject of this week is Xena, Warrior Princess, Volume 4. This is the new ongoing tales of the 90s television star by Dynamite Comics. The artist is... No, I believe the writer is Meredith Finch. The artist is Vicente Cifuentes. The colors are by Triona Farrell. The letters are by Cardinal Ray. And I do think it should be mentioned that the covers are by Meredith Finch's husband, David Finch. Long-time comic artist for the Big Two and Independents. You know what, Joanna? This is your deal, so I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. All right. So, who here isn't familiar with Xena? Raise your hand. I didn't think so. Okay.
I was doing other things with my hands that should not be mentioned.
Okay.
Dad joke alert.
We are moving right along with a brisk pace. So this takes you back to the very beginning. Xena meeting Gabrielle. Classic introduction. They rewrite it a little bit. The story of the meeting is a little different from the show. That's fine. They can go several ways. Basically, Gabrielle is being harassed by some ruffians. Xena swoops in, saves the day. You know, Gabrielle says, "Hey, wait, I want to tag along." She says, "No, I don't need a sidekick. I travel alone." Circumstances put them together. If you remember the show, it kind of took a little bit of warming up.
Can I ask an early question? Because this, I had a couple things that were not quite clicking in my brain, and I needed to solve them.
Sure.
If I remember correctly, the outfit Gabrielle's wearing in this series, this is one she developed after she learned how to fight. Before then, she was wearing like a red and gold or red and brown dress of some sort?
She was wearing a brown skirt and a blue shirt when she first meets Xena. No midriff showing, no cleavage showing.
Yeah, and
this design is a little bit different. She's got like almost a complete split down the shirt where it's kind of stitched together. Mm-hmm. It's her green top and kind of, I don't know, skirt. She can kick and flip in it.
Okay, I was just trying to think, because I saw her in that outfit, I was ready to see her use that quarterstaff as a weapon. Instead, she was using it as a walking stick, and she was acting like a bard, not somebody who learned to fight. So I was just trying to make sure I didn't miss something in the middle.
Right, I was going to talk about costume design separately, but yes. Okay. She doesn't decide that she wants to become a bard until a little bit later into the journey. She wants to be a writer in the show. Mm-hmm. And then it develops into, hey, I can tell stories. I can tell stories of Xena and our adventures. But like I said, in the comic, they're taking it a little bit differently. They're not completely rewriting their dynamic. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering, you know, if anybody else had the same notice of the costume. Also, they give Xena heels, which she never had.
Yeah, that bothered the hell out of me when I picked up on that around the third issue.
It bothered me too.
I mean, I know that...
I'm like, no, honey, no.
Yeah, I mean, I know heels are visually stunning. I am also very aware that the actress who originally played Xena, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on her name right now, and it's...
Lucy Lawless.
Thank you. I'm very aware that she is not the tallest person, but at the same time, you know, no woman wants to fight in heels. At least I haven't met one that does.
Only a guy would design that?
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I mean, it was a visual choice.
Most women I know barely like walking in heels. The few women I know that enjoy being in heels, you know, they're paid to kick men in the balls for money.
Can confirm. I do not like walking in heels.
So, yeah, that stuck out to me as soon as I keyed into it. And then, unfortunately, it's one of those things that follows me through the series because I keep looking for stilettos.
Good. I was glad that somebody else picked up on that. So it's the whole female with heels. And also, her cloak is bright red. Yeah. Now, in the show, she's traveling around. She wears brown colors, earth tones. She does have a cloak, but it's brown. In the comics, it's bright red.
It's a striking visual choice, and I don't blame it necessarily, except I was a little bit afraid that the artist was trying to evoke a bit too much Wonder Woman in his imagery.
Yeah, I kind of saw that.
Because then she busts out the rope and she stands there heroically with the rope when she's kind of gathering up the ruffians.
Yeah.
And he's like, Xena! She's looking for this. And she's got the rope in her left hand. I'm like, that's a Wonder Woman pose, which I'm not opposed to, but it's not Xena. I want to keep them separate.
Yeah, the cape strangely billowing as if blown by an unseen wind.
Yes. Always.
So,
right. And yes, Gabrielle is more plucky in this timeline.
Chatty,
in the original
too.
Timeline. Well, I mean Gabby. Sorry, I was looking at Xena. I'm flipping through as I'm going here.
Okay.
So Gabrielle is really mousy when you first meet her in the show in the 90s. Here she's moody, kind of giving the little one-liners to the ruffians trying to abduct her. And she's not exactly fighting, but she's already got like the gauntlets on and the wrist, the armbands on, which she doesn't develop in the show till like season, I want to say 3.
I could not tell you. You know what? When the show came out, I was young enough that all I really cared about was, you know, leather and boobs. I wasn't really paying attention to the plot details.
I was watching it as a hero to look up to.
I'm not saying it was a bad show. It was just it hit me during that post-puberty era when I had different priorities. That's all.
Right, that's fair. Anyway, I'm sure you're not alone on that, but my reason for watching it was, okay, strong female lead. Mm-hmm. And of course, you know, if you go back and watch it, like I do because I have it on DVD, it's corny, the one-liners, but it's kind of one of those campy feels where you appreciate the corny jokes. And there are one-liners in the comics, but they're nowhere near as corny as the 90s. So if that was a turnoff for you back then, we got you covered. The writing is pretty witty. It's kind of like haha moments. So it was interesting though that they do kind of move the story of Xena and Gabrielle along, because I think originally she saves her and then rides off, and then Gabrielle like runs into her later, a couple episodes later.
Okay.
They're not immediately
chummy,
bound to each other. Yeah, exactly. Like, because Xena's keeping this, I'm on the dark, gritty path to redemption, and I do this alone, and it's something I have to do alone. I don't have room for friends. All my friends get hurt. Kind of brooding, kind of Bruce Wayne.
It did feel like, I remember the original show. Occasionally when she would talk like that, it seemed like all we were missing was like a shot of a San Francisco pier at midnight and Humphrey Bogart in a trench coat.
Basically, but I mean, she does carry a lot of weight on her soul. And I'm hoping that they get into that a lot more.
It seems like they were leaning in that direction, but they were trying to just ease people into it, and I can understand why. That much exposition that early on could be a serious turnoff to new readers.
True. And then in episode 2, or issue 2, she's going through this nightmare of her former warlord, bloodthirsty self riding through and raiding a town, and her, kind of sleepwalking form is there. No, stop. I was never that cruel, was I? And then she wakes up, from this nightmare and kind of like, I'm fine kind of thing. And Gabrielle's like, oh, are you okay? I noticed she's like, and I'm fine, So she's still very walled off. Gabrielle's like, well, fine. Yeah, I was talking about our feelings, a waste of time. Sorry, I asked, kind of thing.
Yeah, what happened to Sisterhood of Traveling Pants and yada yada?
There's no pants, though.
Oh, right. Right, Grease. I forgot.
Yeah, go figure. Everyone wears mini skirts and knee-high boots. Didn't you know this?
Yeah, everybody.
Everybody, like totally everybody. Even Ares at one point, but that's besides the point.
Ew.
Which I hope he's in this, because he was one of my favorite parts of the show. I hope he makes a debut in the comic. He was one of my favorite foils to her. So anyway, fast forward. They're after some people who were kidnapped. And then you see this group that the bandits were working for who were kidnapped. And then you meet Callisto. And do you know who Callisto is? Do either of you? Casey, I think maybe you know Xena a little bit.
I know that Callisto is... Well, originally I thought Callisto was like some kind of god that shapeshifted or something like that. But
no, she's human.
Yeah, I'm gathering she's human, and obviously, since I read it, I now know who she is.
Right.
He hopes.
Yeah, she lost her family to Xena during Xena's warlord days.
Mm-hmm. And she kind of goes psychotic. She is absolutely psycho. And mentally and emotionally unhinged. But she trains and she becomes a fighter, and she vows vengeance on her whole village, of whom I think she's the only survivor.
I think there were periods where she was almost an anti-hero on the TV show. Almost.
She was a constant thorn in Xena's side. She was actually her main nemesis. Mm-hmm. If you don't count the gods and the ones who like resurrected her later and then wiped her memories and put them in Elysium together. It was an interesting run. So I'm actually fascinated to work out their their squabbles in here, because Callisto's like, oh, I'm going to kill her. I'm going to make her suffer. I'm going to kill everyone she's close to. And Xena's like, wait, who are you? And she's like, oh, you forgot me. I'm so forgettable. And she absolutely snaps.
This is the kind of thing that usually plays out on Instagram in the current era.
Oh, yeah, and Twitter, I'm sure. Yeah. Like, OMG, did you see her? That skank. Whatever. What? I don't tweet or Twitter, emote. So angry I don't know. Angry I stay away from people who Twitter, so anyway, that's besides the point. It's for the birds. So.
Oh, that was a pun.
Yeah,
that was a pun. I also like how she used Twitter as a verb. I just stay away from people who Twitter.
Why kill when you can aim for the pun?
I will always aim for the pun. I love puns. They're so great. Yeah. Anyway. And then they come across the Cyclops. You know, they're adventuring. And they do come across the Cyclops in the, you know, the series. I'm going to just refer to it as the series because that's kind of the source material for all this world.
Right.
Gabrielle does try to talk them out of eating them about the same way. It's funny because she uses almost line for line the conversation between herself and the Cyclops into escaping. The way they get it out is a little bit different, but, you know, Xena is awesome. She gets them out of it with a little distraction from Gabrielle.
Well, also the special effects the special effects in art is cheaper than in television.
Yeah, and it's again, 90s television, kind of corny special effects. You can do so much more in comics, but I appreciate the corn factor of the show for what it is. It's campy, and I love it. And I will always love it. Anyway, so they kind of drag out the, where are you going? I'm going this way. But when Xena finally gets to Athens, she's seeking Elios to be shown. She wants to atone for her past sins. She wants to basically have her redemption arc. She's begging, she's, you know, imploring the deity goddess, saying, what do I do? How do I atone? Let me do something. Tell me what I need to do. And then Gabrielle wanders off and gets kidnapped, like she does. Because Gabrielle, that's basically the damsel in distress. Oh, wait, I'm skipping ahead.
No, it's fine. You're doing fine.
Okay. Because I'm like all over. Because I'm like, show knowledge, book knowledge.
I know.
Show knowledge.
Now you know how I felt when we reviewed Buffy.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of, I know she's talking about the show when I don't hear pages turning. That's my benchmark.
Right. Well, I'm also trying to kind of keep it linear. Xena finds herself cornered by Roman guardsmen and soldiers. And she's like, okay, all right. You don't have me surrounded. You just given me a target-rich environment. Okay, I got this. And Gabrielle's like, oh, there you are. Okay, you have to excuse my sister. She's a little nuts. She's not Xena. She thinks she is. She thought she was Aphrodite and walked around naked for a couple months. And, you know, just kind of bluffs her way. Now, mind you, if this was a D&D game, she was rolling those 20s like, oh, no, this is my bluff check. Yeah.
That bluff was strong enough, though. I was really looking for Gregory Hines in the background as Josephus from History of the World Part 1.
Yeah. Of course,
Where
like
you
I said,
from?
they kind of
Ethiopia.
keep it. Yeah.
Which part? 128th Street.
125th Street.
Boo. Anyway, so, you know, Gabrielle's kind of quick thinking, quick talking, bard skills, which, again, she didn't have in the first incarnation of her meeting Xena. And of course, Xena's like, yeah, you saved me. Okay. All right, let's get out of here. And then of course she's like, no, don't follow me. You'll get in trouble. And I'm wondering how long they're going to do that back and forth.
Well, you know, if you keep feeding bards, they just keep following you.
I know, like, right? You save their life a few times, they save yours. They see adventure, they get that sparkle in their eye, and you cannot get rid of them. It's like glitter. It's all over, and you can't get rid of it.
You gotta admit, though, generally the success bar for bards is relatively low. As long as you don't force feed them their mandolin, they're okay by you.
Or harmonica, in Gabrielle's case, which she actually never had.
I remember staring at that thing, and did we just trip into the Song of the South? Why does she have that?
No, in the comic book, he's like, oh, this isn't gold. She's like, no, it's a harmonica. I'm like, what?
Is a harmonica an ancient Greek instrument, though?
No. She always talked about wanting a lute or a lyre.
Yeah, when he bit into the harmonica, and I halfway expected it to be stolen back by them Duke boys or something. I didn't know what was happening with that.
Oh,
yes.
The worst.
Yes. Yeah, that was way out. And of course, a lot of these aren't really historically accurate. I say this because my minor was history, my major was anthropology. And if you rewatch the series or read through here, there's a lot of historical inaccuracies that I just kind of had to click that little historian off in my brain. I said, okay, this is Xena. It's fantasy. It could happen.
All right.
One of my favorite scenes of the, I guess it was issue 3.
Mm-hmm.
Xena's like, no, it's too dangerous. I'm going to go into this tavern. You sit here. No, sit. And so she makes her sit on this bench. She's like, now stay. And she's like, meh, meh, meh. Okay, fine. This is me helping by sitting, you know. Of course, lo and behold, someone comes up and chloroforms her. Now, it's obviously chloroform. It's a rag that's put over her face, and then she passes out. I'm going to let you think about that. Do you think that they had chloroform back then?
I don't know. At this point, they had
chloroform back then.
Well, they have a harmonica at this point. For all I know, he just stuck her a roofie.
All right.
He did.
That's some Doctor Who shenanigans in there, and I'm calling BS. I'm calling continuity BS. But anyway.
Hey, I'm only going with what they've shown me so far.
Right. Well, Gabby gets kidnapped like she does. Xena finds receives the kidnapping letter?
Yeah,
or whichever.
It's not a ransom note. It's just more like
letter.
It's a taunt note.
Yeah. And of course she knows where to find her. She roughs up a few henchmen. She finds out the location. Gabby comes to, and her sister's been kidnapped with the big bunch that had been loaded onto the ships. She's like, oh, cool. Wait a minute. You're here. Great. She's like, no, don't worry. I've got a friend.
Yeah, and I thought being kidnapped was the worst thing that could happen today. Wonderful.
Basically. And of course, Xena's like, damn it, now I gotta go save this girl. Of course, she'll probably do that 8 million more times.
Yeah.
Of course. So, Callisto's basically set this trap knowing that Xena's gonna fall for it. And unfortunately, she does, but she doesn't, because it's Xena. You can corner her, but you're not really wanting to trap her.
Xena's, at least is depicted in this book, Xena's not much of a strategist. She's more like a medieval John Wick here. It's just force of will.
Yep.
Well, she would rough up the henchmen and the whole, and I like the callback to where she blocked the flow of blood to the brain with like 1 or 2 little trigger points.
Yeah.
Points.
I wondered if that was bullshit or not.
No, that happened in the show.
It was a thing. That was definitely a thing she always did when she was intimidating. That was her intimidation move.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you can die or painfully of lack of blood to the brain, or you can tell me what I would need to know.
She was taught by her martial arts master, Leonard Nimoy.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Even when I watched this show as a kid, I thought that was complete and total bullshit. But
yeah,
whatever.
Right, and since I'd been raised on the original series, I'm like, that's a Vulcan death grip, isn't it? Just a little bit of wait a second, I've seen this.
I'm on to your shenanigans.
But you can't interrogate a henchman if he's knocked out, so they're just paralyzed because plot.
Yeah.
So anyway, Gabby's back on the boat. Gabby's trying to get out of there, and her outfit seems to have changed again. Now she's wearing like compression shorts with like a loincloth over it.
I thought she was wearing that at the beginning.
No, it looks like she's just wearing the tan color like doeskin skirt. And now I'm gonna even go back to the earlier ones. Yeah.
Yeah, I found that to be fairly consistent. I mean, I could never tell about the loincloth color because she was in shadow during a lot of her scenes.
That's fair.
Yep.
Well, in the first issue, it's just a skirt. I'm going back and looking at it. In like the second and third, it kind of evolves into the shorts. Anyway.
Maybe
I think it was
of the show.
Yeah, from what I can tell, she was wearing the shorts throughout. The only difference was how big the slits were in the side of that skirt.
Yeah, those change consistently too. And then Gabby demonstrates the power of the spoon, which I think it's kind of amusing when her sister's like, "What? The spoon again? What the hell?"
Yeah, not quite as good as Alan Rickman's uses for it, but still good.
I mean, so Gabby's mouthing off to her captors again, which again at this point she would be cowering in the back with the other people. it's kind of neither here nor there, but for some reason it kind of stuck out in my memory.
Yeah, that scene actually bothered me a little bit. And it wasn't the idea that she got beat for being mouthy. I mean, patriarchal society and you're supposed to be sold into slavery. I don't agree with his motivations, but I understand what was happening. The thing is, though, when she got slapped, she had that blood coming out of her mouth. Then she said something else, and she got whapped hard to where there was blood spray, and she is trailing blood as they drag her out. The very next time you see her, she's on her knees in front of Callisto, and she looks absolutely fine.
Yeah, I saw that. Wait, didn't she just get gutted?
I don't know about. I assume they broke her nose or something, but nope, not. Maybe they did. Maybe they just have a really good surgeon on the boat.
Or plot.
Yeah, I mean there was a number of. There's a number of more colorful jokes I could use, but I'm going to spare all of that because that's just going to get me booed.
Yeah, I know where you're going with that, and no.
Hey, and that wasn't even me trying to be sick. I was just looking at that going, that's a really strange place to put that blood trail.
Go to your corner. Anyway, we pan back out to Xena. She's found the ship, of course, because she's part bloodhound, of course, and she storms the castle like she does. Callisto knows she's coming in. By the bams, the crashes, and the screams for help. Oh, well, we're not going to have to wait long anyway. She's here. She threatens Gabrielle's life, holds a sword to her neck. And I know this is, again, neither here nor there.
Mm-hmm.
When did Gabrielle get the size double D cup?
I wondered that.
Yeah, I was kind of noticing that myself. The artist here, Cifuentes, he's pretty good. He made a lot of good approximations of the stars of the TV show in this series. They were very recognizable as, at the very least echoing the actors. But he's got some serious issues with dynamic motion. His action is a little bit, I don't know, if possible, herky-jerky in comic book form. Mm-hmm. Wasn't very clear what was doing. When Xena throws a flying kick, she's practically doing the splits like every goddamn time somehow.
Yeah, it's to show off her legs like the original director, whoever it was of the show. Because, legs for days kind of thing.
But I did. I was going to say, I noticed that in these 6 issues, towards the end of issue 4, I think he started to feel I think time was running out for him. I think he was spending more time than he was supposed to per issue. And then he started to skip certain details, or he started to just kind of hurry up, and maybe he missed a few things. I noticed that Gabby's bust was increasing as the series was going along. Meanwhile, the detail of the faces was decreasing.
Yes.
And that bothers me from a female standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, if you know the show, she's super flat. The actress, especially in the early times when she doesn't have anything revealing on.
Yeah.
Like, season 2, she starts showing a little midriff. I think season 1, there's maybe an inch or 2 of skin showing between her top and her skirt, but it's a long skirt.
Well, maybe whoever fixed her nose on that boat gave her implants.
Just, in a matter of seconds. It's magic. Right.
Power of the gods, yeah.
Right.
Hey.
Because plot.
Okay.
But it's kind of, for me anyway, it was distracting, because I'm like, this isn't Gabrielle. Of course, it is because she's being held captive. Anyway, I kind of got tired of the damsel in distress trope, and I was really glad in the original series, when she learned to fight back, and she actually was adopted by an Amazon tribe. Woo, go Gabby. A little bit of trivia. True or false? Is Xena an Amazon?
False.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I thought I was going to trip you up with that.
Not enough Wonder Woman iconography to fool us on this one.
Well, a lot of people think Xena's an Amazon. She's not. She has some Amazon allies, and I use that in a very loose term, because she pulls up on an Amazon tribe, and they're about ready to kill her, and she's like, wait. Remember you owe me a favor from back in the day? Calling it in. They're like, meh. But Gabrielle actually is adopted by an Amazon queen in the series, and when that queen dies in a battle with the centaurs, Gabrielle is actually promoted to their queen. Anyway, a little bit of fun fact trivia, because I got info. Anyway, so Callisto and Xena face off, and of course, Callisto in her psychotic rage is like, okay, well, fight to the death for your friend here. And she threatens the life of her, what do you call it? Her horse, Argo. Like, who does that? And then, of course,
that?
Her horse. Argo is, like, amazing. He's the best horse ever. Anyway. Very obedient horse.
Okay.
Very good horse.
All right.
So she threatens her crew. You step in, I'm going to kill you kind of thing. She just wants to end Xena publicly, painfully. And just when she's about ready to, or one of them's going to gain the upper hand, Gabrielle accidentally sets the boat on fire. Oops. She's trying to get the keys and let everyone go below deck when the ruffians come in and, oops, boat's accidentally on fire.
This is what you get for making your slave boat out of particle board.
I mean,
Yep.
You would think that they'd learn after all this. So anyway, they're about to, come to a head. Xena knocks Callisto unconscious, but she's like, oh, Gabrielle, you're okay. And then you see in the very small corner Callisto jumping off the edge of the boat. So she's not unconscious. Again, plot, question mark. Then kind of wraps up where Gabrielle, well, we've got this thing to go do. Let's go. And she's like, oh, okay, well, I have this thing for Road for Redemption, so I want to help people. She's like, well, I'll go with you. And I'll write about it. And so it seems
that's right, she's a bard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That explains so much now.
Does it? Now that you've played D&D? Yeah. So bard.
And like most new bards, her Charmsville sucks.
Well, sometimes she has good saves and good bluff, like with the Roman soldiers. They were so confused. She was using words like, wait, what is this woman saying? She's talking to us? I don't know. She has her shining moments, and then, oops, set a boat on fire. Sometimes you roll high, and sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
So anyway, and then 6 goes into what seems to me a new story arc. You open up, and someone's having a tripped out vision with white eyes, and speaking with an unholy voice.
I actually started to get into this particular issue towards the end of it because the story of this oracle as well as the competing oracle down the road, I don't know why, but I found that compelling.
Yeah, and I actually read one more after it just because I had the 7th issue on hand. I've been getting them from the local comic book shop. I really want to see how this next part pans out because the parents don't know if she's possessed or touched in the head or touched of the gods. They don't know. So what do you do in ancient Greece if your daughter's possessed? Well, we'll just go ask the oracle about it. Because why not?
Dude,
apparently...
This issue, though, Xena had the physical prowess of a Mario brother. I mean, she's standing on her horse, Gabby's on the back. Somehow she puts her hand, behind Gabby's ass, and with one shove, pushes her, an entire cart length to get her into the back of this running horse cart. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Are we sure she's not a demigod, too?
She has access to wire fu.
Because it's a comic book, they can make things happen. And of course, Gabrielle is quite clumsy, especially the first, again, I'm going back to the source material, the show. And then, of course, she sticks the landing and she's like, oh, I made it. Did I? Eek! And she makes a little squeak. And then she goes into straight seductress mode, like, hey there, to the guard in the back of the wagon. I was like, okay. I guess, because, again, Xena?
Yeah, the whole war cry thing did not come across well on the page either. I mean, every time they used it here, she's jumping into something, screaming with it, and then all of a sudden she just seems to shift gears and start fighting. It almost seems like she had an autistic moment and then remembered where she was.
Yeah, and even when she was fighting in the show, it was like, hey, hey, you know, like
Yeah.
between little. It doesn't translate well to text.
No, it doesn't.
No,
It
it doesn't.
just reading through it, it reminded me of when I was living in Omaha, and the kids out in the Midwest would play cowboys and Indians, and I always got to be the chef.
Oh, that
Racism.
could get really dark really fast. Anyways, we're going back to the comic book we're reading.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, that was some weird twist of physics that I was gonna also bring up. But comic book.
Yeah.
And it's addressed a little bit later. The Oracle girl is like, the gods don't know what to do with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because she was this ultimate force of evil. She was under the tutelage of Ares. She was a bloodthirsty warlord, war lady. I don't know if there's a female equivalent, but warlord for all intents and purposes. And she has this, like, drop of the hat moment where something radical happens. And if they get to it in the comics, I don't want to spoil that for someone. Anyway. And then she's like, what have I done my whole life? How do I fix it? How do I atone for all these deaths? So she goes, on this. But you gather her history through flashbacks, through dreams that are relevant to whatever's happening in the storyline.
Mm.
Because there's always something that leads you back to why she's on this quest. Like, why did she stop and do this side quest? Why did she go from here to there? So she's basically wandering back and forth between different city-states trying to do something good for people in need.
It's not like she can stay in any one place for too long that has a regiment for fear of being discovered and arrested for things she's done and trying to atone for anyway.
Because Rome is a sore loser, and she did a lot of making them lose.
Is Greece under Rome at this point? Because these sound like the Grecian gods.
They never say the exact historical period. It just says ancient Greece. But she does piss off Rome. There are some legionnaires that she tangos with, and the soldiers that corner her, I believe, are Roman. And if they're not in the story, then they look exactly, they drew them like Romans.
If you're wondering what period it is, I mean, we'll go on the one historical character that they bring up, which is Julius Caesar. And if that's the case, then we're talking probably around 35 AD.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she tangos with Julius Caesar. She conveniently meets Marcus Aurelius. She runs into Cleopatra. She Gabrielle masquerades as Cleopatra for a minute in the series. They kind of hop all over, and so I'm not sure where the comic book is going with this yet. So we'll kind of, I'll be reading it consistently, so if you want to know later, I will tell you.
I like this where the story with the Oracle was going, because it's the first real indication you get through any sort of metatext that Xena's newfound journey actually seems to have an effect, but the question is where she'll end up, and that's still an open-ended question.
Right.
And, that's always been the difficulty of comic books. Kevin Smith said it best when he said that comic books are second-act storytelling. The first act is where you set up the story. The second act is where you have a grand adventure. The third act is where you finish the story. But when you have ongoing series, you're never supposed to get past the second act, and that's difficult.
Right. And on a road for atonement, you're not going to do it in a day. You're not going to do it in a month.
Yeah.
So I always felt that that's what gave her story longevity. She has to fight personal demons. She has to make amends for her past. She has to go home and find forgiveness from her family, And that's hard because she's proud. And she was way proud as a warlord. And so it's kind of like, eating humble pie and taking your lashes and come what may kind of thing. So the fact that they bring the Oracle in is interesting because she does have some sort of insight. We don't know what it is yet because we're kept in the dark as well as the parents. We don't know what's going on until we see the real Oracle saying, "Oh, we don't like her. She's gonna move in on our territory here. She's gonna replace us."
Yeah.
And the girl doesn't know what's going on. Her family doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah, the Oracle just legitimizes a story without taking you far down a side road.
Mm-hmm.
I found it to be a pretty good storytelling technique.
Right.
You know, the 6 issues on a whole are pretty good. It just has some issues, some problems, I should say. Issues is the wrong word because it's going to double up fast. The largest problem I had on everything that was going on was, I'm not sure if it was the writer or the artist. I want to say it's probably editorial, when they try to take too much from the TV show and make it part of the comic book. And I mean the simple things like the war cry. That doesn't translate well into paper. You know, and certain mannerisms from the show don't translate well into paper. I could have done without that if they just really, I don't know, had a conversation with whoever they had to talk to really make the story their own and make it work on a 2D storytelling plane.
Mm-hmm. And I think they go with the premise that anyone who reads the series knows the TV series.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, the war call doesn't translate well. So if someone who doesn't know who Xena is picks it up, they don't know what the sound should be in their heads, you know.
Yeah.
And anyone who saw the show,
Yeah, you gotta admit, in text,
will kind of supersede.
Yeah, in text, it sounds like either you're having an Alpha 5 freak-out moment, or
I was just gonna say that.
or possibly you're a very Jewish grandmother.
I think that they were trapped into do that. They had to do that to appease the fans, because I mean, this is obviously part of the mythos. You can't get around it, regardless of how campy it is. It's got to be in there.
Yeah,
it is her signature war call. It's just as iconic as her outfit, as her horse, as her sword. You know, you can't have one without the other. And so I appreciate that they did add it in there, but it made it awkward to read because you never thought, what does this sound spelled out on paper?
Yeah, I can't really. Yeah, I can't say I ever thought about that. I always found it interesting during the show when she made that sound. She was always doing a double backflip for some reason.
Yeah,
regardless of context or where she was.
Or cartwheels.
That's how she got into things.
It's definitely not how she got in that corset.
Like, writers, we appreciate you putting it in there, but don't do it again.
Or I don't even think that they had an alternate though. You couldn't say like high pitched war cry right here, you know, because that would take away from the setting. Yeah, and kind of make it lose a little momentum. So I understand as a reader, it's a sound. You know, it's not like you can just say buzz. You know, like an onomatopoeia. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a word that sounds, you know.
You know, situations like this are probably why you don't find a whole lot of comic book characters that have war cries that are just snarling sounds or things like that. That's probably why, you know, these yellable mottos were developed, just so you know when people were at the charge without actually making bizarre animalistic sounds.
Right. For example, if you've ever read the Harry Dresden books, the Dresden Files.
Can't say I have.
Mm-hmm.
He has some really interesting battle charge cries. They're really ridiculous. Those would translate very well to comics.
Well, you know.
And fuego.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not quite as artful as put the sexy back in wholesale slaughter, but, you know, it's pretty good.
Parkour!
You've got some that would make you snort water out your nose. Anyway, it's a good series.
It really is.
So, I guess we should try to wrap this up. Casey, what you got?
Oh, we're going for me on this one. Okay,
Why not?
Sure, I guess why not. I didn't watch a whole lot of Xena, but I watched Xena enough to know who was who, except because, I guess for Callisto, I didn't know jack shit. I swore that she was a shapeshifter, but anyway, I knew about Ares, I knew about Hercules, I knew the spin-off, I knew about Gabrielle and that whole thing. And I knew that she was a warlord, I knew about that chakram?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah,
okay.
Chakram.
So it seemed like the book was trying to retell the origin story. I don't know why it chose to do that. It kind of confused me as a reader. I mean, are we really continuing the show, or are we just rebooting it for comic?
I think that they had to have some sort of introduction for people who maybe don't remember much of the show, or they saw a little bit. They didn't want to just drop you in the middle of, here's like season 7 of Xena, like they did for Buffy. They went from the ending season and then they picked up in a new season in the comics. They're like, okay, well, they met. She saved Gabrielle's life. Here's their adventures. I feel like the introduction and the setting the stage was necessary because it's been so long, and not everybody has it on DVD like I do.
So the art was surprisingly solid. I mean, it was definitely well suited for the story it was telling, and I say that because, of course, I tend to read the more mainstream comics, and Dynamite's not exactly mainstream, so they don't tend to get the best talent. So I went in thinking, okay, well, this is going to be the kind of stuff I would see in an Eclipse comic from the 80s or something like that. That's what I expected. So it was I was pleasantly surprised. It was nice. It was clean. Mm-hmm. You got the right artist for this kind of, I don't want to say medieval, but let's say ancient timeline. So that's cool. Although, I got to say with Jeremy, the art did start to fail as the issues progressed. Almost like the person was rushed to get this done. There was a lot of dialogue that didn't need to occur. There was a lot of scenes that just spread on for panels after panels after panels that were really unnecessary. It got to the point where I looked at all 5 of the issues and it's like, we could have done this in one episode. All 5 of these issues, one Xena episode, done right off. So much so that we really didn't even need to look at the individual pages because the time was so, how best to say this? Like one issue was a very infantile amount of time. I think they need to wrap that up a bit. I'm not saying, introduce us some nice word salad. I mean, that was nice that I could just zip through the pages, especially me, because I tend to review things at the very last minute.
Tend.
Yeah. I mean, that was pleasant. They're not killing me with paragraphs, which is good in your first few issues. You don't want to just murder a comic with gigantic paragraphs. They're just it's not. Yeah, I mean, it's not so much that I hate reading. It's just the fact that I'm now drawn to a complete stop while I read all this, and then now we can move on. So that was nice. Whoever was writing it knew their pace. So there's like zip, zip, zip. Cool. But yeah, I still gotta say they wasted a lot of pages on a lot of dialogue. It didn't need to happen. They could have completely skipped over that Cyclops thing, I think. Even though
it seemed like a side quest kind of thing.
So that's fine. I thought that Gabrielle's sister was a bad guy because she kept smiling. So I guess I got sucked in by that red herring. And because I thought Callisto was a shapeshifter in my head, I'm thinking, oh, okay, this is Callisto. She's fucking with us. Nope, that really is the sister. Okay, well, that's just... I don't know what the hell that's all about. It do feel like a Xena issue, so I have to go with that. And if I was going to give this a number score, I would say I'd give it a 6. Because it did... I was compelled to read the whole thing. Mm-hmm. But... It seemed like the talent of the art faded and the talent of the writer. Yeah, he needed an editor. That's what this issue really needed. This issue really needed an editor that was paying more attention.
Okay. Jesse, what you got?
Well, I agree with Casey. It's just kind of a breeze to read, so that was great. But reading all the way through, it just totally felt like watching the show, which, to my dread, I don't like camp. But I couldn't see I wasn't as meticulous with the art as you guys were, but I did notice that there's a lot more attention to the breasts. It's like, why?
Because testicles.
Yes.
Because they want to appeal to males.
Yes, I get that. And that's why I remember more Xena Warrior Princess than I do Hercules. Because
Look,
I was in that...
I'm just going to be quiet on that one.
sorry. You got three guys here who are teenagers when this show came out.
And I was quiet when y'all roasted Preacher last week.
Jesus. He's going to take this shit personally. Go on, Jesse.
No, I remember Xena more than Hercules because, as campy as both shows were, Xena had more interesting characters. I remember Hercules had a sidekick, but for the life of me, I couldn't remember what he looked like. What he looked like or what his name was.
All right.
But for the comic itself, I think I said my piece. Quick read, felt like an episode of the show.
Okay.
I really don't have much beyond that.
All right. What number would you give it?
Honestly, I'd be with Casey and give it a 6.
All right. I did think it was a fast read. I went back and checked because I felt like I was going through it too fast. And it turns out, for some reason, Dynamite Comics has 1 to less 2 pages of story than most other comic companies, and I don't have a good reason why. At the same time, while I was reading it, I was engaged fully into the story. I didn't feel like I was backing out, even though I was noticing the odd details. You know, Gabrielle's shifting bust size, the strange items that seem to appear outside the relative time era. Xena looking like Wonder Woman at every opportunity. And I still can't say why those particular decisions were made other than attempts to just bring in other comic book readers. The retelling of the origin story I was okay with, and I was also kind of impressed that the writers managed to tell this story with no exposition boxes. They took it on faith that you were actually reading the dialogue instead of giving you a whole bunch of monologuing, inner monologues or just unnecessary backstory. The characters do look a lot like the actors in the show. It's just kind of a shame that this artist, he needs some help when it comes to dynamic action. It's one of the points in general where he could use somebody behind him just telling him, I know that looks cool, but bodies don't do that. And for the life of me, every time I noticed a woman in a high-heeled boot, I wanted to yell something, and I didn't know to who.
Well, I'm glad I'm not the only one in that boat. Honestly, that's refreshing.
Okay. Yeah. I'm anal retentive when it comes to detail. That's my problem. But, it's not a bad series. I just can't say for sure that it's quite the right direction. As we've discussed, they spent a lot of time in this series making it feel like an episode of the TV show. However, television doesn't always translate well to a static storytelling form. That being said, though, I do appreciate the work that Meredith Finch and I think her name is Miss Schultz, I think, who wrote the 6th issue. And this could turn out to be a very entertaining story. It just needs some editorial help. I would give it a solid 7.
Okay, fair. I guess it's my turn. Because of nostalgia, I'm probably going to rank it a little higher than you guys.
Wouldn't have guessed.
But I am also balancing out. I found a horrible lack of chakram use.
I forgot about that. That did occur to me how little she used her signature weapon in this one.
And it looked like at one point, it looked like she cut some guy's fingers off.
Yeah,
but then in the next frame, that wasn't the case.
I couldn't tell if he was praying for his fingers or if he got hit in the face or if he just felt like kissing that rock.
And it looks like he got hit in the face.
And sometimes in the show, it'll knock someone out, and sometimes it'll cut off something. And that's never explained.
Mm-hmm.
Like, sometimes it'll just, hit someone in the face, and sometimes it'll cut a rope.
Cut stone.
Yeah.
Cut a sword.
Right. And that's besides the point. But I did notice a lack of that. And I understand. I did appreciate the lack of exposition. They kind of flash back with a dream. That's totally permissible in my book.
Mm-hmm.
You get a sense of who she is. There's a little brooding. Every hero broods. Go back and check comics. Tell me I'm wrong. Every hero broods, especially when they're on a redemption story arc.
Right.
The pacing was good. I like the pacing. I think that it definitely could have been condensed. That's a fair point. But it wasn't hard to sift through. I mean, we've read some comics where like every issue is just like, oh my goodness, is it over yet?
Yeah.
This wasn't the case. It's, very fluid, and this is a series that I was interested in. I'm going to continue reading it. Also, nostalgia plays a big part. Xena, She-Ra, and Wonder Woman are my top 3. It was like the triad that I looked up to. I'm not going to say Trinity, but the triad of superheroes that I kind of looked up to before I got into, the X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
So she does hold a very, very special place in my heart. And I really hope that they kind of get the storyline a little reined in. The dynamic action definitely needs work. The proportion of the body, and that's always been an issue of mine for comics. Like, oh yeah, busty, leggy person, but what are they like personality-wise?
Right.
We'll see if they clean that up. I will be looking at it with a critical eye. I'm going to dock points, though, for the heels. There's no excuse. There's no excuse. At no time did she wear heels, except when she was pretending to be in a harem. Like the purple belly dance suit.
Yeah,
I'm sure you guys remember that scene, that episode. So, as much as it pains me, I'm only going to give this a 9.
All right.
But it's mostly because of the lack of chakram and the heels and the bust size.
All right. Everybody has their preferences. There is no wrong answer.
Oh, I didn't say I was wrong. I just said that it pains me.
Last week was full of wrong answers.
I said it pains me to not give it a perfect 10, but it did have some flaws that I will be big enough of a person to admit.
Okay.
And not just look at it blindly. So.
All right. Well, next week was Jesse's selection. Jesse, what is your selection?
Oh, I hit the Wayback Machine and see how well this thing holds up. Or is it going to be like my old 80s cartoons?
Which one? You're starting to scare me here.
We're hitting the Archie comic series called Knuckles the Echidna.
Oh my god!
Oh, really?
Are you seriously doing this to us?
That's amazing! That's definitely new territory for me.
Oh my god.
Knuckles
the Echidna,
man.
Sonic the Hedgehog character.
Yes.
I used to watch this on Saturday morning.
Oh my gosh. This is going to be interesting. Okay.
Yes, and I'll be the first. If this is horrible, I'll be the first to apologize to you guys.
Well, you better start writing your apology right now.
How many issues are we reading, Jess?
6. It should be 2 full complete arcs within the story.
Okay, so it's 1 through 6, I assume?
Yeah, 1 through 6.
All right. Well, we'll check this out. So next week it's Knuckles the Echidna. This is going to be so different. Thank you very
a dark moment.
Thank you very much for tuning in. I have a feeling Jesse's about to get his cell phone broken by Casey. Have a great one. I am Jeremy.
I'm Joanna.
I'm regretful.
So am I.
See you later, everybody.